Hey guys, it's Kaz here, and today I'm going to be wrapping up all of my January reads. So let's just dive in. So the first thing I read in January was Rat Queens Volume 3, Demons. This, after reading this, I did a bit of research, and it's this weird thing where it's like kind of canon but also not, because Volume 4 doesn't necessarily take place after this, and some things retconned because of drama between the people that made it and all that jazz. But I enjoyed this. I've also seen that people moan about the artwork, but really, I mean, I read Volume 1 and 2 so far away from each other that I can't even tell that the art's different, to be honest. I enjoyed it. It's fantasy. It's a bunch of characters just being sometimes silly, very often R-rated. I enjoyed it. And here is that artwork that I mentioned. After that I read Dance on My Grave by Aidan Chambers. This one is one that I saw the movie of towards the beginning of last year, found out it was based on a book. Here's the book. And to be honest, I enjoyed both of them pretty equally, the film and the book. Both of them pretty much stick to the script. I did think it was quite funny in here because the book is based in England, the film is French, and then a few times in here French and France is mentioned just randomly in passing by, and I just thought it was funny because the film's in French. Like at one point the main character talks about his worst subjects being French, and it made me have a little giggle because in the film he is French. But anyway, other than that, this is about two boys who meet and they're summer together, and then a bad thing happens. I mean, the book's literally called Dance on My Grave, so you can imagine something bad's gonna happen. And straight away at the beginning, the first page is like, tells you the dude's dead. I'm going to tell you what happened. If you don't want to read about a dude that's been dead, then don't read on. And again, the same for the film. They did a really good job of portraying that. And yeah, it's really sweet and cute, but obviously also there's a death and it's harsh. And then it's really interesting how they're both woven together. So it will tell you the story. It will be happening when it's happening. Then there's also little bits and bobs in between where it's like caseworkers and social workers talking to the main character now after this thing has happened, and them trying to figure out what happened between him and this boy and why he did the thing. And yeah, I enjoyed it. Like I say, I think the book and the film both did a really good job of telling this story. Also in January I had 1 month left that was free Kindle Unlimited. I got 3 months with my Kindle, so I thought, hey, I should probably read some stuff on there, otherwise it's kind of pointless. So the first thing I read was Cheer Up, Love and Pom-Poms. This was a graphic novel about cheerleaders, as you can tell, and it was a fun time. It was quite cute, a bit of a slice of life. Our main character is someone who's not very girly. She's very aggressive. Most people don't like her because she's kind of snidey and tells people how it is. And then her mum tells her she should probably join the cheerleading squad because she needs something else on her application for college, all that jazz. And then she does. And then a girl that she used to be friends with is on there, and it's them rekindling that friendship and more. Our main character is lesbian, and then the girl she has feelings for is a trans girl. So it's nice and inclusive, and it does talk a little bit about transphobia, like not necessarily outward aggressive ones, but you know, like those little microaggressions from the team who think that they're all supportive but they're really doing stuff. So it does a really good job of portraying that. And then after that I read another graphic novel on my Kindle called Pillow of the Woods. This was kind of a sweet one. I think it's middle grade. It's about loss, but it's told in a really magical way. Like the main character, her mother has died and she's kind of trying to deal with it. I think it was the mom has died, and then her sister is like taking care of her, and she gets really angry at her sister because she doesn't think about the fact that her sister is also dealing with all these emotions because she's quite young. And then she goes off into the forest, meets this like magical forest creature, and it's them kind of talking to each other, going through the forest, trying to find this magical creature's home, but then also sort of realising these feelings of loss and stuff and trying to come to terms with it. And yeah, it was nice, middle grade. After that I read Law by Alexandra Bracken, and right, going into this, the only things I've heard about this is either meh to ooh. Like, I've heard people hating on this book. I can't remember anything they said, why they didn't like it, but I pretty much liked it. I thought it was a decent book. Yeah, it's not like the most original, amazing, brilliant masterpiece in the world, but sometimes you want a popcorn flick when you're watching films, and sometimes you just want a really fun, easy reading YA fantasy. And I feel like this is that. and I honestly don't know why it gets so much hate, because I quite enjoyed it. So this has Greek mythology weaved in, but it's very much like the Greek mythology is put into this story, so it doesn't really follow the tropes of mythology necessarily. In here, all the different people from different houses of mythological people that have killed like a creature, they're all fighting, and then the gods every 7 years, 9 years, I think it's 7 years, every 7 years the gods all become mortal, thrown into the earth at some place, and then all the peoples from all these houses just try and kill the gods, and then they get their powers, and then 7 years later people carries on, kill all the gods. And yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting. I liked the story. Yes, there were some like tropey aspects. The main romance in here, I was like, why do we need that? It's very unnecessary. They could have just been friends. But it's a YA fantasy, and I'm like, even though I hate it, I know that authors probably have to put romance in because it's a very big selling point in books. So I'm like, I'm mad at it, but I'm not fully mad at it because I understand why. Although I wish that wasn't the case, that we don't need romance in here. But there were other bits that twists that happen, and I was genuinely not expecting it, so I was like, oh shit, what is going on there? So that's always enjoyable. I like reading books and then something happens that I wasn't expecting. That's always a bonus. I like the way that some mythology was in here and either nodded at or twisted to be a little bit of different meaning. I thought it was nice to see the author try and change stuff, because obviously like mythology is like boom, it's set in place, everyone knows this story and this is how it went, and that's the end of it. So I appreciate that Alexandra Bracken tried to twist a few of them things on their head and change it a bit. Maybe that's one of the things people don't like, trying to put a different spin on mythology, I don't know. But yeah, I liked it. And the ending, I feel like depending on how you read the ending, you could be annoyed because it feels like silly, but on the other side, I understand what it was trying to say, in my mind anyway. So yeah, stuff. I liked it. I enjoyed this book. It was quite chunky, but every time I was reading it, I felt like I wanted to carry on reading it because I was really interested, and it was quick and I was eating it up. So yeah, why the hate? Nobody knows, apart from the people that hate it, which are a lot apparently, but not me. After that, my last Kindle read, which was The Shades of Magic Volume 1 graphic novel, The Steel Prince. This one, I'm kind of glad I read it on the Kindle because I had it on my wish list and I've taken it off there because, I mean, it was alright. I gave it 3 stars, but it falls into the trap of trying to shove too much into one very small volume. I feel like comics sometimes go one of either way. They either try and shove in too much information in like 140 pages, or they make the story go on for ages and ages and ages and like push it out, and you're like, bro, just tell me the story, stop putting all the filler in. And then there's the nice sweet spot in the middle. This one unfortunately fell onto the shoving too much in. Like, I didn't know who any of the characters were. The artwork as well wasn't good enough for me in a way that I couldn't tell who was who. There was no physical characteristics of most of the characters, so when the fighting was happening, I had to read the fighting scenes like 2 or 3 times to figure out like, okay, what is actually going on, because I don't know who that is or who that is or who that is or what's going on. And then again, in the art style, the way that magic was drawn didn't really come across well, apart from one of the characters who had a cool magic power. You could tell visually what their powers were, but everybody else, it was kind of jumbly and hard to figure out what was going on. And like I said, I think it was just too quick. They tried to shove in too much in this one volume. I feel like maybe this volume should have finished at, so there's people, there's a prince, he has to go into this place because he's like arrogant and does what he wants. So he gets sent off to this place so he can work in the army or whatever. And then there's like a tournament, and then after the tournament some more other stuff happens, and I feel like this volume could have just filled out until the tournament, because there's enough of a story within up to the tournament, and you could have had a bit of a cliffhanger for the next volume, and they would have given you time to breathe and figure out what's going on and give the characters time to actually live. So yeah, that was my problems with it anyway, unfortunately. It was alright, but the artwork and the storyline weren't the best. After that, I reread What They Always Tell Us by Martin Wilson. This one was for the Buzzwordathon, Readathon. I can't remember what the buzzword was. Oh, what, when, where, why, how, and that. And this is What They Always Tell Us. That was the one. Yes, so I reread this and I really enjoyed it again. It's one of them books I read a long time ago, so I knew kind of the basic gist of what was going on, but I'd forgotten most of it, which is really cool. So this follows 2 brothers and it tells you in alternating perspectives about them. It's pretty much just like character driven. it's them living their life, stuff's happening. Straight away we're following the younger brother, and at a party like a few months ago he drank some pine sol, is that what it's called? So then everybody sees him as the weirdo, and all of his friends have stopped being his friends, and he's very lonely. And then on the flip side, his brother is just getting ready to get to college. He's waiting for his acceptance or non-acceptance letter, and he's got his friend group and he's going out and drinking and doing loads of stuff. But with him, he's kind of like feeling like he's over that. He's feeling like he's getting distant from his friends. He doesn't want to be just doing this partying and drinking anymore. He's sort of kind of waiting to be able to leave. And then within that, there's also a neighbour, this young 10-year-old boy who becomes friends with both of them, and he sort of is the reason both of them start talking again, because after this incident they've fallen out and they don't really talk anymore. And also there's like some sort of mystery going on with him and who he is, because him and his mum moved in and nobody knows why. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Like I say, it's very much character driven. There obviously is a storyline in there, there's a bit of a mystery with Henry, the young 10-year-old boy, but most of it is just them characters dealing with stuff, living life, and it's good. Oh yeah, and also our main part of the story is the younger boy, Alex, gets in a relationship with his brother, one of his brother's best friends, and that's part of his story and part of his stop being so lonely anymore, and it's good. I liked it. I reread it and I still liked it. We're about halfway through, so let's head on over to a message from one of the sponsors, and then I shall be back with the rest of the books.
How in the hell does she do that? There we go. You know what? What is your secret? Because you stand up there as dull as dishwater, and then we start shooting, and you look so good.
So after that, I read Aristotle and Dante Dive into the Wonders of the World. No, the Waters of the World. And I was a little bit disappointed in this, I'm not gonna lie. I know. Here's the thing. So I didn't reread the first book, but in my mind, in the first book, the characters are very different from this book, and this book literally takes place as soon as that book ends. And I feel like the characters change so much instantly, drastically, and it just felt a little bit jarring. Like Ari, in my mind, from the first book, was a very insular person. He didn't necessarily talk much outside. He was very vocal inside, like we read him talking about stuff. I feel like out loud, he didn't talk necessarily a lot. And then in here, he's giving like flipping 2 paragraph long monologues constantly, all the time, instantly, as soon as the book starts. And this feels really jarring. Like, it doesn't feel like you get that point of him becoming that person. Like, if this didn't start instantly after the last book ended, maybe I could have thought, oh, maybe it's been a few months and he's opened up a bit and that's why. But it just felt really not like him. Speaking of the really long monologues, this book is flowery and flowery and over the top in language to a bad degree, in my mind. Like, fair enough, if Ari and Dante talked to each other and they were really, you know, talking about philosophy and life and all that, that's fine. Those two people could connect in that. But every single character speaks the same. Like, they make friends with other people at the school and they all talk in these metaphors and similes and paragraph long monologues, and they're all like 17-year-olds in the 80s, and it just feels a little bit unlikely and unnecessary. And why does every character have to feel this philosophical? It's just, yeah, it wasn't a good point for me. It annoyed me that every single character was like that. Like, at least give a few people just like normal personalities instead of overly la-di-da philosophical, metaphorical existence and beings constantly, and no one could ever say a sentence. Everyone was like, here is a paragraph about nothing, and that adds on as well. So much of this book was about nothing. It's massive, it's really chunky book. I feel like if this book was maybe 100, 200 pages less, so some of the fillery nonsense could be filtered out, I would have liked it. Because, well, not that I didn't like it, I gave it like 3.5 stars, but I would have liked it more, because I feel like within here they're talking about a lot of good stuff. They're talking about the AIDS pandemic, they're talking about life, they're talking about love, they're talking about loss, they're talking about racism, they're talking about all these different things, and all these things are important things to talk about. But then there'll just be chapters and chapters and chapters where you read it and it ends and you're like, okay, and what was that about? And I've literally just talked about a book that's mostly about character, people, you know, what I always tell us, what they always tell us is about character driven, it's about their life and stuff, but in here it feels like the bits that you learn about their life are just so, just filler, just, especially considering how impactful and important certain bits are. It makes the bits that are not that feel just totally unnecessary and like filler and over the top. And I thought some of the disagreements in here were just like thrown in just so they could have a little bit of some ebbs and flows, because it's very much like, oh, it's gone on like this too long, we'll best have a stupid argument that makes no sense about anything, just quickly throw that in for no reason. And it was unnecessary because there are other things in this story that are like the antagonists, like AIDS is the antagonist, racism is the antagonist, homophobia is the antagonist, there's a certain teacher that is all of these things that is an antagonist. So we don't need these unnecessary fallouts between Ari and Dante that just seem really childish, especially considering how like adult and philosophical they both are, and then they'll fall out about a really stupid thing and then not talk for like a week and then talk again. And I'm just like, really? You want to act grown up and then you're going to be a little baby about something like that? So yeah, it was honestly a little bit of a push to get through. Like, I was reading this at the same time I was reading Law, and I kept picking Law up because it was fast and fun and easy to read, and this, I'll be reading it and like my eyes would be like, whoa, whoa, because it was just a lot to get through and kind of boring in places. So yeah, unfortunately didn't live up to what I was hoping for. I don't know what I wanted in this book, but it wasn't whatever this book gave to me, unfortunately. After that, I reread Nailbiter Volume 1, and then I also read Nailbiter Volume 2. This is a comic series about a town where it's infamous because so many serial killers have come from this one town. And then right at the beginning of the first volume, our main character is a detective, and his detective friend gets in contact with him and is like, oh, I think I found out the reason why all these serial killers are coming from the same place. And then he goes to the place to meet his detective friend, and then he's nowhere to be seen, and then it's like a mystery trying to figure out where he's gone, what's happened to him, and also other crazy weird stuff's going on at the same time. So yeah, I reread this volume, really enjoyed it, it was very fun, and I'm glad I reread this volume because there were a lot of things in here that I couldn't remember. And then Volume 2 I also enjoyed. I feel like, I'm not 100% sure yet because I haven't read the other ones, so this isn't like a crazy long series. I can't remember how many there is, but there isn't loads, maybe 8 or something. So I can't say yet whether stuff in here will have relevance, but reading it on its own, not knowing what's coming, I do feel like a few of the little storylines felt a little bit like, okay, but what's that got to do with the story? But it might be, you know, a couple volume time, it might come back, so I'm not going to be mad about that. I enjoyed it anyway. Like I say, it did feel like a few of the bits in here were little one-shots, but they might be relevant one-shots. So some of them were just talking about some of the serial killers that existed, what they did, so it is relevant because you need to know about these people. But yeah, I enjoyed it. We did get more of the main arc in here going forward. It's called Nailbiter because one of the killers from this town, the most recent one, the one that made the town infamous, likes to kill people and then nibble on their nails, well, their whole fingers. And he somehow got a not guilty when he went and had a trial. So he's still living in the town, and they're a bit suspicious of him, but also he has to help them out a little bit. So it's kind of like that, the killer helping out the detective a little bit because he knows more about stuff than they do. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I'll show you the artwork in the first volume. So it looks like this, and it's a good time, and I want to read Volume 3, of course. After that, I read The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune, and here's the thing, throughout the whole month it was like, yeah, 3s, 4s, very average month. 5 stars, good times. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. The writing is just so whimsical and fun and enjoyable, and the characters are also all those things, and it was just a really good time. I've only ever read one other TJ Klune book, which was How to Be a Normal Person, which also had this kind of whimsical vibe about it, so I really enjoy that part of his writing. And I didn't know much about this going in because I didn't want to know, but it's about a guy who goes to orphanages that have magical, fantastical children there that can do fantastical, magical things. And he has to figure out whether they should be staying open, whether they're being treated right. And yeah, I just really enjoyed this book. It was exactly what I needed. It was really sweet. It was really good. The kids were just really, I just really liked them. Like Lucy is just such a troll and I love it. And it's also nice seeing a romance happening with people that are not teenagers. Like both the older gentlemen in here in their 40s, and yeah. I don't even know what to say about this. This is the thing, it's harder to say stuff about books you like than it is about books you didn't necessarily like. It's just about the main character Arthur going to this orphanage place and meeting all these kids and the person there and learning how to enjoy the company of people rather than just living on his own and working a really shit job. And it was really good. And last but not least, I read Boy Queen by George Lester. Oh, I think it's got some red pastel on the side, but it's red, so it's fine, it goes with it. So yeah, this is about Robin, who is all singing, all dancing, theatre performer, and him and his journey and the road to becoming a drag queen. I enjoyed this book. It was very good. It was a fast read. Again, one of the only issues I had in here was the unnecessary drama. You know how I talked about it in Ari and Dante just putting in disagreements for no reason? I felt like that happened a little bit in here. Like him and his friends were like super close, but then it's like, oh, let's not tell them this one specific thing that's why for no reason. Why don't you just tell them? And you know, just to have that little bit of you know, the breakup in the third act, as it's called. So that thing was kind of like, was that necessary? It did feel like it was just there just for drama, so we could have that drama in the book, because you need that drama in the book. So that was the only thing that I was like, nah, why? You could have made it something better than that, because it just felt really unlikely and unnecessary of a thing to fall out about. It was an unnecessary thing to lie about in the first place. It was weird. But anyway, other than that, I very much enjoyed it. I also really enjoy Robin and the relationship with his mum, because I have a really close relationship with my family. We can take the piss out of each other, we can have a laugh, and I really like it when I see that sort of relationship in a book. And maybe it's an English thing, because this is obviously English, George Lester is English, that we can just take the piss out of our family and that's normal, instead of it just being this stern parental figure who doesn't really have a personality and they're just there to be a parent. I like it when the parents have character and have a little bit of a fun time with their kid, and this was that, so I very much enjoyed that. The drag part of it was fun. I liked the characters, all the different names. I liked that it mentioned RuPaul's Drag Race. It wasn't trying to pretend that doesn't exist, but it was also its own thing and showing different things. I read another book, it wasn't ARC, so it might have changed. Pumpkin, I think it was, by Julie Murphy. And in there, they have like this made up name of a different drag show, but like every single aspect of it was blatantly RuPaul, and it annoys me when people do that. It's like, just make your own thing up or talk about the real one, because clearly you're allowed to in books. So I'm glad that in here it wasn't like, oh yes, we really like watching Gemini's drag show with all these people, and then like saying names that are almost exactly the same as the real people. Anyway, that's beside the point. I enjoyed this book. It was a good time. It was a nice thing to finish on. And there we go. That was everything I read in January. Let me know down below anything you read, or if you read any of these, any opinions, any thoughts, any feelings. If you've read Law and you have a certain way of what you think the ending was like, say yeah in the comments, and then I'll say what I think the ending was. Maybe. That makes no sense if you haven't read it. But I feel like some people read that ending as a cop-out, but I read it in a different way. Anyway, yes, say that. Say anything about any of these things if you want. It's there. That's what it's there for. Do it if you want. And yeah, if this is your first video by me and you enjoy it, then please check out some of my others. And if you continue to enjoy, then please subscribe. That'd be awesome. Anyway, guys, I'll see you in a few days with another video.